I'm going to put in my schedule things that I want to do, time that's open. And I started to build this in for 2019. And that year was one of my best years ever. It was so different. And I tell the story, in hindsight, I tell the story, things weren't different. I still was PTSA president. I still was working in that promotion. My husband still had his promotion, right? We still had all of the same things. It truly was me feeling like I was in control of the time I was spending, me feeling like I could put boundaries around the time that I was spending. And when I did that and added those things in that really felt like they were for me, everything was different. But it wasn't, right? It wasn't different. It was only different in the way that I saw it. And so that for me is always that power of the mindset going into that balance.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Becoming More Me. I am so excited. Today I have Lori Oberbroeckling, and Lori, like me, is a mom of 4. She's an author. She's a master juggler of work and home life, and she deeply understands the value and the complexities of meaningful work combined with motherhood. She's a corporate leader and trainer. She's a podcaster, a photographer, a productivity expert, and the author of the book Secrets of Supermom: How Extraordinary Moms Succeed at Work and Home, and How You Can Too. She is passionate about helping parents who want fulfilling careers or side hustles or passion projects. And I'm really, really happy to have her here today. So welcome, Lori.
Yes, thank you. Super excited to be here.
Yeah. And so I always love to start with kind of just going into the fun things about you, not necessarily like the bio-worthy work stuff, but like, what do you love to do in your day to day? Where do you live? Who are the important people in your life? What's your favorite hot beverage? That kind of stuff.
Well, favorite hot beverage is coffee, and I have it every single morning. I am lucky enough to have a husband who thought it would be fun to roast coffee and thought he might just buy a roaster and see how that worked out for him in the backyard. And it's awesome and delicious. And so I get to drink the most amazing hot coffee every single day. So that's a perfect question for me.
Awesome. It sounds like it could become a passion project too.
Oh, his own passion project. I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. No, there are things that light on fire in that thing. Like, no, it seems very unsafe, but it is delicious. And so, yes, I'm very lucky to have wonderful hot beverages on a daily. And then my people are my kids. I hang out with them a lot. I have 4 of them. They are 7 to 14. I have 2 boys and 2 girls. My husband is also one of my people. And we have a lot of fun together and a lot of chaos together and a lot of challenges and a lot of glorious times and everything in between.
Oh, I love that. So how did you kind of make this journey to where you are now, becoming passionate about helping moms achieve this work-life balance, which some would say is pretty elusive?
Yeah, for sure. I felt like during the pandemic, especially, I felt like women were doing things differently. And some were really feeling like they had it together, and some were feeling like they were falling apart. And then there was everything in between. And so as I interviewed and surveyed, I ended up doing formally almost 200 surveys and interviews. And I started to come up with these secrets, which is where the book Secrets of Supermom came from. But it was that there were different things that they were doing. And I realized, oh my goodness, there are women that get to do all the fun things they want to do. They get to have the amazing career, and they get to have a side hustle at the same time, and they get to hang out with their families, and they get to travel, and they get to do all these fun things. So they have to be doing things differently, because I don't want anyone to get to do all those things and feel terrible about it and feel stressed out about it and feel burnt out about it, right? I want everyone to get to do the things they want to do and live these lives that they want to live. And so I found some of these secrets, right? And I thought, okay, I'm doing some of these, I'm not doing some of these, and how can I get better at mine? And then, we were talking as we were chit-chatting right before, the power of no. That's definitely one of the ones that I have taken from the other women.
Not saying no enough.
That was definitely I was a very, very yes heavy, and I still am probably more yes heavy than I quote should be. But yeah,
we all fall into that trap from time to time.
But I do feel that it is a lot easier, right, easier to identify my no's and also easier to actually say them than it ever was before. And that really has helped me get to do the things that I want to do and leave the things that I maybe don't want to do so much or that are just maybe not right for me right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what do you do for your corporate work?
Yeah, I am in pharmaceutical research and I work in our neuroscience division and I do a variety of things. It changes often. So I train and I support and I line manage and I run projects from top to bottom. And so I do a lot of very, what I call left-brained activities, right? I do a lot of thinking, a lot of logic, a lot of timeline and budget management, and a lot of very logic driven activities. And that's another thing that has drawn me to writing and to photography and to having this business is that I get to do all the fun creative stuff. I get to take the things that I'm very good at the logic, I'm very good at the numbers, I'm very good at all of that, but it doesn't keep my entire self lit on fire enough. I need to use both sides. And so being able to have those opportunities to get to do both is like the perfect quote balance for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. But it's also like really tough when you're trying to juggle 4 kids and all of that, like
It's
without a
wild.
doubt, or it can be. I think a lot of that comes down to perspective too, and the way that we
Yes.
reframe things. I know I do a lot of that in my work. So, what do you find are some of the best ways to cope with the mom guilt?
So I think that the biggest thing for me is deciding what I really want and being really clear on that. And then when it's a lot easier to say no to the things without guilt when you know that yes was getting in the way of something that you really wanted, right? And so I feel that as I keep practicing the no's and realizing me not going, I mentioned, that there were some things we let go of this holiday season. And I realized that I was able to fill it with things we really wanted to do. And it's a lot easier not to feel guilty about that when there's so much clarity in the things that you got to do instead, right? There
Yeah,
was so much clarity in the fun holiday things I got to do by letting go of some of these other things. And so I didn't feel guilty about it this year, not at all, actually.
right.
And I would have in previous years probably let it eat at me, right? Let it get to me. Let me try to beat myself up about it and tell myself that, oh, you should have done that. Why didn't you say yes? You probably could have squeezed that in. You probably could have figured it out, right? I would have gotten my head about it. And I didn't let myself do that this year. And I haven't for the last few years as I've continued to work on this. And it's just, it's a lot different life.
Yeah, it sounds like it's very intentional.
That's right.
And that intentionality definitely leads to more clarity. Lori and I met when I came on your podcast.
Yes.
That was, I think we met in like spring of 2022.
Yeah, that's probably right.
And I think I was on episode 69 of yours, which was, I think I wrote down the name of the episode here. It was The Transformational Power of EFT. But on that episode, I remember we did some tapping afterwards, and we
Yes.
did that tapping on mom guilt.
Mhm.
And I just find like we always kind of end up in these cycles of like the things that we're so good at helping others out of, we still get caught up there. And I think that in itself is intentional in coaching because it just reminds us like what's needed and how human we still are, whether we want to be or not.
It's
Even
so
if we want to
interesting
be
when when you're coaching or, even leading teams and that sort of thing, like working with employees and teams, you start to hear these same things come back. And, I even find myself saying, you're me, right? Like I am steps further, but this, like, you could be saying the words I would have said 3 years ago. You could have been saying the words I would have said 7 years ago, right? You're
Yeah,
just hearing yourself and those folks, you're just helping them take those next steps that
right.
you have, probably someone helped you take those steps forward. And then now you
Absolutely.
get to pay that back. Yeah.
And as the consciousness and the awareness raises, we really do realize that more than just, figuratively, you are me.
Yeah.
And that it just goes like so much deeper into the whole realm of things. But, I thought it was cool because when we were together for your podcast, I was just starting to create that resource where I would tap with different podcast hosts and things. And I created something called the private sessions. I think yours was one of like the first 6 that went in there. There's over 60 sessions in there now. And so
Wow.
if you guys want to revisit mom guilt through the lens of me and Lori in 2022, just go to theprivatesessions.com and you can get a copy of all of those. But I think that it's still so relevant today, what we worked on then and how it comes back full circle. Because the mom guilt we can get a better handle on it. We can get more aware of those thoughts, but I think it's a hard one to kick entirely.
Yeah, I have yet to find a mom that said, I never feel guilty, right? I notice when I notice the feelings that are coming up. I notice the words I'm saying to myself. I
Right.
hear them. I know what my next steps are, right? I know what my coping skills are. I know who to talk to, where to go, what to do, right? They know those next pieces, but I have yet to find one that it just kicked it entirely, right? No more guilt. I feel
Yes.
fabulous every single day. I'm confident in my decisions every moment. No, I haven't found that.
I would have to say the exact same thing. I took that awesome quiz that you have on your website to
Yeah.
uncover my supermom superpowers, and I am a priorities protector.
Oh,
So
same.
Oh, okay. So I have some different questions about this. So about how we feel about priorities. Let me give you a little info on this. So I talk about priorities on my podcast and in my book. I'm sure you do too. And I'm sure it's not new information to you that it's been only like the last 100 years that the word priority has had a plural. Before that, we had a singular priority, and it was not originally intended to be something that we had more than one of. Yet today, people have these like lists of priorities. So, how do you feel about plural priorities? How many is too many, and what are some good ways we can protect them?
Yeah. So this is just such a great question because in working with women, we would plan out our weeks, plan out our days, right? We do a lot of planning in our society, and we would choose our top three. And I kept finding over and over again that it was too many. Women weren't getting them all done, or they were feeling overwhelmed by the top three. Having even just three priorities, right? It doesn't sound like very many, but even having three was feeling like too many. So we stepped it back and we said, we're going to pick one. You're going to pick one big goal for this week. You're going to pick one big goal for today. Because when we say, I can focus on the one thing, right? The one item that I'm going to focus on today that will make me feel successful in my day, then we don't have to think, right? We don't have to choose what the other things are. We're saying, this is it, and this is what I'm going to do today. Does that mean that's the only thing you'll do in a day? Of course not. No. But it says, this is my one priority for today. And when I get that done, I will feel successful. And I will know that I can keep the promise to myself to focus on the one thing, right? So we focus on that one thing. And that has been wildly different. Women are hitting those, they're getting that one thing done every single day, big or small, right? They're getting that one focus every single week and saying, did I focus on that? How did I focus on that? How was my energy around that? And it's been magical. So I think that although certainly there are lots of things important to us, my
Right.
children are important to me, and my job's important to me, and my business is important to me, and my husband's important to me. I have a lot of quote priorities, but I can't focus on all of them at the same time, or none of them get the effort, energy, me that they deserve.
Does your priority tend to be the same thing every day, or is it like an item?
Mine changes. So sometimes it's an actual thing, right? Like it might be, I'm working on a project and we've got to finish it, right? So it might be like that work project that day. But sometimes it's that I need to take time, right? So just open space. Sometimes it is time with somebody, right? So like maybe I know that my husband and I haven't hung out for a while. So maybe that priority is schedule some date nights, right? So it's not actually anything I'm doing that day, but it is something that is going to make the next set of weeks, months, years, I hope, better.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I always feel like I prioritize feelings. Like my overarching priority is presence. Because I feel like whatever I'm doing, even if it is like a task, like you said, and it's, completing an email sequence or, whatever the thing may be, I want to be present when I do that because I know that everything will get done and feel better if I'm present throughout the process.
And we just feel less overwhelmed, right? There is this, I call it a buzzy feeling. You might feel it differently in your body, but to me, it feels like buzzing. That overwhelmed feeling feels like everything in my body is buzzing, and there isn't complete focus on anything. It's like your mind is a ping pong ball jumping around, and everything feels buzzing. If I'm focused on one thing, all of that goes away. It's like there's a calm that washes over me that I can focus fully on the one thing. And whether we're talking about an email sequence or we're talking about a date night, or we're talking about sitting on the couch watching a movie with the kids. It doesn't matter. But if I am trying to do all the things, that overwhelmed, buzzy feeling, I could feel it. And I go, something's going on, because this doesn't feel like the calm, amazing feeling I want. And then I can make those changes.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, Lori. Thank you. As as a corporate leader and a productivity expert, what are some of like the practical tips that you recommend for individuals that are trying to enhance their productivity, especially when they're juggling so much?
Yeah, I think a lot of us don't have very key processes in place. It really, the teams I work with, the team members, or and the moms as well, the parents, it is often comes down to systems and processes. I call the very first chapter is The Secret of Habits in my book, and it talks all about habits, routines, and systems, because those processes are what allow us to be really efficient or not be efficient at all. And so even when it comes down to keeping a master to-do list versus post-it notes all over my entire house, right? When it comes down to a certain way of starting your day and going, I'm going to look at the things that I need to do, and how my day is structured today. Each of these little things make a big difference as they add up, and you do them over and over and over again. So that's really where we start if those are not already set. Of course, some people have that and then we go to the next step, but that's usually the first step, because that's usually what just isn't really in place. It's kind of like, oh, well, sometimes I start my day at this time. Sometimes I do this. Sometimes, sometimes I have a routine. Sometimes I don't follow it. Sometimes, the kids are chaos. Sometimes we do it differently. So it just is kind of getting some of those routines in place. And usually that kind of takes down that level of anxiety, and then we can decide where we want to make changes.
Yeah. I always like to see how people show up once they have a routine to follow or a protocol or whatever, because I think that's where, at least in my work, when I'm looking at the subconscious and all of the like nervous system dysregulation, that's where I get to see like what's blocking them from actually like following through or whatever else. I always find that to be kind of fascinating, but it's the practical processes and things that you help people put in place that help people realize where the energetic blockages are and things like that. And I know you also, I mean, energy is everything. That's how I kind of live and breathe. And I know that you talk a lot about, like energy blocks and things like that. So where do you see that show up? And how do you like to help people with that?
Yeah. So this is very much a how you feel in an experience. So I talk about bleeds, blocks, and boosts. So bleeds are basically those things that suck you dry. You feel exhausted after. You feel like the minutes are ticking by, like you dread it. You just don't want to do it, right? Those are those energy bleeds, things that are going to make you feel drained. The blocks are really things that are usually monotonous, boring, things that just don't impact your energy either way. And then a boost is something that excites you, makes you really like ready, motivates you. Oftentimes I feel like with energy boosts, we lose track of time, right? It's something that is so either fun or energizing or just energy boosting to us that we go, oh, I can't believe it's been an hour. Oh, I can't believe it's been 45 minutes, right? And so those things, when I'm looking at, when someone says, I'm just exhausted all the time, right? If we're not talking about a health problem, oftentimes we might just be talking about the way that you've scheduled your day and the things that you're actually doing. It's energy bleed after energy bleed after energy bleed, and no energy boost, no things that light you on fire. And some of those things are small, right? Like it might be reading a couple of pages of a book that is an energy boost for you. It might be taking a walk around the block. It might be like petting your cat, right? Like it could be these very small things, but it could be big things too. But when we think about, oh, if everything I have bled energy out, at some point that energy's gone, right? We get to a point where we feel like we have nothing left to give. And by being a little more strategic with it, we can boost it back up so that we feel like we've got that sort of consistent flow of energy. It bleeds out, we boost it back up. It bleeds out, we boost it back up. Because we can't avoid the energy bleeds entirely, at least not in my experience. It'd be awesome if you could hire someone to do everything that bleeds your energy. But most of us have, still have to like change poopy diapers and, like have really uncomfortable conversations with our children when they have done something they're not supposed to do, right? So we can't get rid of it entirely, but I do think that we can be think about it a little bit more, look at our schedule a little differently and say, oh, no wonder I feel terrible on Thursdays. I have 5 meetings back to back with people I hate, right? Or whatever it is. We just, I mean, hopefully you don't hate them. Hopefully you don't hate them.
Even in order to delegate or to hire somebody to do the things that we don't like, we have to have experienced them as not liking them. So it's unavoidable. I mean, and, then even once we've delegated something, there's going to be other things that come up that it's like, don't love that either. So
absolutely. And I don't want you to delegate the things that you do. If there are things that light you on fire, I want those things to light you on fire. Like, let's keep those things and get rid of the things that are exhausting to you. Yeah.
Yeah. In my experience, I found that the things that light me on fire are typically things that are very exclusive to me doing them. Like that somebody couldn't do in my place, even if they wanted to. It's like, I can't hire somebody. I guess I could, but they're not going to be awesome. I could hire somebody to write my hypnotherapy rounds for my clients, but they're going to not be awesome. I could, I could probably hire people to do coaching in my place, but it wouldn't be my coaching. Like those are the things that light me up because they're unique to what I can deliver.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And knowing those things is such a power, right? Because you can say, I am going to fill my day with lots of energy boosts. And then I'm going to spread out my energy bleeds. I'm not going to back to back them, in a spot so that I am exhausted and annoyed and, irritated and just feel, ugh.
Yeah, I think one of the things that helped me the most when I was really up-leveling my business was really looking at my calendar and like what days I wanted or time blocks I wanted to delegate to, client work or podcasting or just my own thought work and my own personal appointments, and to make sure that I started a practice of saving one day a week that was literally just for thought work and my own personal appointments, and saving a week out of the month for whatever I wanted and not doing appointments.
People will call that a CEO day, but I think a lot of, like a lot of teams, even if you work in a corporate setting, right, where you don't totally control every meeting that you have, a lot of teams will try to have, one meeting free day a month, or maybe even, meeting free Fridays, so that they sort of move everything else into that quote 4-day work week. And then they've got a day where people can focus on projects or focus on training or focus on thinking about solutions to the problems that are coming, right? And I think that's so powerful because you do then give yourself the space to do the things that you need to do without trying to squeeze in a little thing in between all of, things that might be sucking your energy or might need so much focus that you just can't easily switch back over.
I think it also makes you get intentional because you know that you're not going outside of those boundaries to, continue to work and wear yourself down because you've created those boundaries. And then you get intentional and you show up with better energy and more focus to deliver what you said you were going to deliver during that time,
Yeah.
So for sure. Can you share any kind of like personal anecdotes or examples from your own life where the principle of like work-life balance and energy management made a significant difference?
Yeah, I think so. Just from a mindset, like balanced mindset, I tell this a little bit in the book, but in 2018, I had a burnout. I mean, I hated everything that I was doing. There were so many changes that happened. So I became our school's PTSA president, and I got a promotion, and my husband got a promotion, and the kids were busy, and all of these things were happening. And I was working nonstop, not just working, but working, right? Doing something from the second I woke up until the second I went to sleep. And it was exhausting. And I felt like if I wasn't busy every minute, that something would get dropped and I had nowhere else to put it, right? I had no other time slot to put it into. And so even the fun stuff, even the scheduled fun stuff I was like, it's just another thing on the list. It was fun. It wasn't fun. It wasn't fun anymore. And so that next year I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I am going to decide, I'm going to put in my schedule things that I want to do, time that's open. And I started to build this in for 2019. And that year was one of my best years ever. It was so different. And I tell the story, in hindsight, I tell the story, things weren't different. I still was PTSA president. I still was working in that promotion. My husband still had his promotion, right? We still had all of the same things. It truly was me feeling like I was in control of the time I was spending, me feeling like I could put boundaries around the time that I was spending. And when I did that, and added those things in that really felt like they were for me, everything was different. But it wasn't, right? It wasn't different. It was only different in the way that I saw it. And so that for me is always that power of the mindset going into that balance, right? Mindset is so important with the way we look at balance.
Yeah. I mean, most of our suffering, I think, comes from the way we think about things. I know
Yeah.
whenever I get up in my head, I always revisit Katie Byron's books and the work that she does in there, because those 4 questions always turn everything around. And I'm like, oh gosh, I'm only suffering because of the way I'm thinking about things.
Oh, yes. I have asked myself a number of times over the last few months, what are you making up this story? And what story is this, right? Because so many things, it's just a story that I've made up. Is that true? Is that story true? And oftentimes it's like, maybe not.
Right.
Maybe it is a pretend story in my head, and I could think a different story, and I get to.
And then who would you be and how would you feel without that thought? It turns everything around 100%.
So true.
So, how do you avoid some of the common traps that a lot of women fall into, like comparison or jealousy or even that people pleasing that we brought up earlier? What are some of your ways of dealing with that?
Yeah, I decided a long time ago that now I'm not a very jealous person in general. So I don't feel jealousy very often, but when I do, I decided a long time ago that I was going to use it to make choices. So I thought, if I ever have this feeling of jealousy, I'm going to ask myself, what is it? What is it that I want right? Like, what is going on there that I want? And what will I do with it? Because then I can say, okay, maybe there's a change I want to make that I get to make, and I will. Or there is something that I'm absolutely not willing to do, right? Not that I would be jealous of this, but right, if I see someone with an amazing body and abs and all the things, right, I don't see myself being jealous of that, but let's pretend I was. I could decide that I'm willing to put in the effort for that, or I get to decide that I'm not, and then I can let that go. And so I practice that. Anything that I have to do with my mind and the way that I think, I have to practice, because sometimes things come up unexpectedly, right? I can't always control the thoughts that are in there, but I get to decide what to do with the thought that I have. And so that's really where I think the power comes in, is that I get to decide. And so when I ever have felt in those positions, I have said, do I want to do this? Do I want to make a change? And if I don't, okay, we're going to let that go. And then the people pleasing, man, that's the tough one, because it's a really hard one. And it's, again, just practice saying no to the things that I really just know that I'm saying yes to only to please someone else, know that it's not serving me, or that it is not something that I really want. And then if it is something that's pleasing someone else, but then I'm like, wait, this is something that would be amazing and, an awesome experience, I do want this, then being able to say yes and feeling really good about the yes.
Yeah, it's a win-win in that situation.
Yes.
That's awesome. What about comparison? The thief of joy.
Yes, the thief of joy. Indeed. Yes, it really is. I think that as I have felt more confident about the choices that I make and the person that I get to be, I find myself comparing less, because I can remind myself of all the things that I have that I want, the things that I used to think about, or the things that I put on my vision board in 2021 that I have now, right? All of those things I get to have. And if there are things, again, it's kind of the same as jealousy. If there are things that I am comparing and going, I want that, or I think that I should have that too, then I better make a plan to have it.
I love it, Lori. So with planning and goal setting being so important as far as, getting the outcomes that we want and the feelings that we want, how do you approach those in a way that aligns with your vision for a fulfilling career and family life? Are there specific techniques or tools that you find to be particularly effective?
Yes, we do a mega workshop where we walk through this whole thing. But one of the pieces that I love is the vision boarding part. So I put together a vision board of things that inspire me for my year, right? Things, whether it's an actual tangible goal or a feeling that I want to have. And I create mine in Canva, and I have it printed, and I put it as a poster above my door, because then I get to sit down every day and I get to look up at that vision board and go, okay. And so I have had years where I have hit almost everything on that vision board, or close to it, right? And it feels really good to look up at something that you're on a path for, and the journey is wild and happening, and it's exciting. And it also feels really good to look up and see things that you've hit, right? Things that you've done, things that you've made happen. And so I love the vision boarding part of it. I love the visual goal and getting to see that happen. And so that I feel like has been one of the pieces that is really important to my process every year.
I love that. I love that. And there's so many different ways to do that. I know I've done the vision boards. I like to do like vision casting and get into like a really high vibrational state and then record all of my specific desires for the year or whatever so that I can listen back to it, particularly in like a trance state and really let it get into my subconscious mind. There's all different ways. So for anybody who's like, oh, I don't want to make a vision board, there's so many ways that you can translate that to different senses and still get a great outcome just for whatever way that you take things in. I know
it might even be, writing it down every day, right? Writing that same thing down every day. I think the magic, the quote, it feels like magic, but it really is reminding yourself every day of the things that are important to you and the things that you want for that year. And so whether you listen to it or you look at it or you write it down, that's doing that reminder in your brain that says, hey, remember what we want from this year. Remember what might take us away from that and what will pull us towards that. And it allows us to just refocus every single day. And by doing that, I've made those baby steps every single day and been able to hit big goals.
I love that. And I think some of the most valuable things we can give ourselves are reminders of things that, everything's already in us, right? But the things that we already know and yet kind of fail to execute on or remember when we need them most, those little reminders mean so much. I've got a Post-it note right here that I look at every day. It says, flip it to appreciation, and it says, I think it's going to be easy. Those are two reminders I cannot get enough of. And there it is right in front of my face, taped on my little stand for my laptop.
You just need it over and over because otherwise the fires, the urgent, all that stuff just gets in the way. And then we feel like we're not making any progress. Right. And so it really is the reminding ourselves of that bigger thing, reminding of ourselves that it gets to be easy, reminding ourselves that, that I talk about I have an abundance of energy. Right. And so just reminding myself that I get to decide where my energy goes. I get to decide how I build my energy up and where I let it get bled out. And so I remind myself of those things every day because that controls all the things I do.
Yeah, I love it. And then of course, making it fresh. Like I know a lot of people do this like once a year, or I like to do these practices about once a quarter because I feel like otherwise I start to not notice them. It's kind of like when you walk into somebody else's house and you can notice all the little things, but in your own house, like all the little messes that other people would notice or so, you just kind of, you don't notice them.
Yeah, it's true. So, you're like, oh, I didn't realize that stack had been there for like 6 months.
Yeah. So once I get to the point where I'm not really listening when I'm listening to my vision casting and stuff, I'm like, it's time to refresh it. It's time for me to sound differently, to resonate differently so that I like fully receive the messages there. And I feel the same way when I do vision boards too. Like after I look at it for a certain period of time, it's like I don't really see what I put there anymore.
You got to change it up a little bit. And then you're like, okay, now I'm ready to go again. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that we're heading into the new year and, we can create all that anew. So yeah, what's the best place for people to find you and how do you work with people?
Yeah, sure. Secretsofsupermom.com is the best place to go. That is where you can find the book, the podcast, the quiz we mentioned.
The quiz. It's a good quiz, guys. Take it.
The society. So the best way to work with me, I work with women one-on-one. And then we also have our Supermom Society, which is our monthly membership, which is also amazing. And I love the women inside and we have so much fun every month. So, and then all my socials are there too. So secretsofsupermom.com is your best place.
Awesome. I will make sure all of that ends up in the show notes for any of you who might be driving or busy-handed right now. And are there any closing thoughts or things that you'd like to leave us with before we wrap up, Lori?
Yeah, just that I am so excited for this year. Every year I say, okay, this is going to be the best year ever because I get to decide what I put into my year, right? And to make it just a tiny bit better than last year. And if I can continue to do that throughout my entire life, I know it will be a life well lived.
Oh, I love that. Oh, thank you so much for being here today. It was so great catching up and talking to you. And I know this is going to resonate so much with the listeners of Becoming More Me. And for all of you who are listening, thank you so much. I know you have a choice in what you listen to when you choose a podcast, and I appreciate you choosing this one. for spending some of your precious time with me today. If you loved this episode, please leave a review or simply share it with someone else who would get great benefit from it too. If you share on social media, please tag me so I can personally connect and thank you. Until next time, keep taking bold and brave steps towards becoming more of who you want to be in this world. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are enough. And if your inner critic is still trying to argue with those facts, hit me up. We've got work to do.